Hello, Lizzie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make Janey. And Janey is quite a large cushion. Again, we're working in the daffodil colours that I so enjoy in January. So it's the greens and the yellows. And Janey is just behind me here. I'll just grab her. And I think you'll agree, she's absolutely gorgeous. She's big. You're going to need a 20-inch cushion pad inside there, maybe even bigger, so you can really puff it out. She's got a nice border around the outside, and we're doing mitered corners with the borders as well. She's got all those lovely patchwork pieces, so this is a real scrap buster that you can go into your cupboards and your drawers and wherever you put your fabrics and pick out all the yellows. Maybe you can do all your pinks and blues, you know. You can decide the colour scheme, but I love, in January, I always love yellow and green. It's so cheerful. A nice easy envelope back as well, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So easy, such a quick way of doing a cushion back. And yeah, so there is Janey. I think she's gorgeous. I hope you like her too. So we're just going to start working on Janey. Now I've got a lot of all the bits and pieces prepared already. So I've done so much of the cushion front, so that's the start of what I've done. Needs a good press, like all things do. And let's just get rid of the paperwork. But what I'm going to show you is how to put the last strip together, and that strip, how you construct it, is the same for all of them. And in the pattern it tells you the sequence of what you need to do. It also gives you all of the measurements that you need. The widths are all the same, so the widths are identical going along. It's the lengths of the pieces that are different, and that you've got a chart in the pattern to show you how to do that. So this is my last set of strips. So I've pinned them all together so I don't lose them. So if we go on to the overhead, let me just move a couple of bits. So if we go on to the overhead, we can see how that looks. Let me just pop that out of the way. And obviously what you need to do is follow the diagram like I said, and pop your pieces down 1, 2 and 3, so you can see how that's going to work. Now in the diagram it shows you exactly how to pattern match, so you don't get any lines next to each other. So in other words, this horizontal line isn't going to interfere anything there, and likewise it's not going to interfere with anything there. So I know that combination is good to go. You might want to jiggle those around if you want to. You can decide what sort of pattern you want, but you can see that none of these cross over, if you like, with other horizontal lines. I thought that was quite important because there's quite a bit of bulk putting this tape on, so I want your machine to be able to cope. So let's go to the machine and we'll pop those together. So it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I do recommend that we open our seams up with all of our seams on this cushion. Not all of them, but the cushion front, just to distribute the bulk of the fabric. Because like I said before, once the tape is on, it actually is quite bulky, and you'll see that with your own machines when you come to it. So it's just a case of joining all the pieces together. Use a 1/4 inch foot if you've got one, and then it's just a case of opening up the seams. So let's do that. This is actually quite an easy make. You may look at it and think it's complicated, but it isn't. So going on the overhead, you can see I've got my little ironing mat here, and all I'm going to do is open up the seams and press those down so they're lovely and neat and flat. You might want to use some best press or some starch spray. That really does help with how your actual design ends up looking, because it's so crispy, so fresh. The seams are absolutely spot on. So you can see how I've opened those up. If we look at the back of the one that I've constructed already, you can see that all of the seams are open, and when we put the tape on, the stitching of the tape actually holds all the seams down. So it's a good way of distributing the weight, but also neatening all of those seams off. Not that we're going to see them inside a cushion, but I think it's important. So bearing all these things in mind, don't forget about your directional fabric. We need to now put the tape on. So I like to use Quilters Tape. It's so useful for getting things right, getting things straight. So pop the tape down the centre of the seams. Don't worry if it's a little bit short or a little bit overhanging. Please don't worry about any of that. And just pop that down, like I say, the centre of the seams. And then we're going to put our tape down. Now the tape, although we make it like bias binding, it's not bias binding. It looks very similar, but we've just cut this on the straight of grain, so it's actually much easier to handle than bias, obviously, but you're not going around any curves or bends, so you don't need to have bias. So if we look on the overhead again, you can see I've put my quilter's tape down there. You can see if I just move it slightly, you get a sort of shine of the tape. And I've got 2 pieces of tape ready to go. I'll just quickly show you how I made that, just so you're up to date with how we put bias together. In the pictures, I've shown you that I use both of my tools. This one very readily available on Amazon, those sort of places. This one is a sasha tool. It's from a lady called Pauline Rogers in Australia, and you can get them pretty much on Amazon, and they are again really useful tools. They're for making binding. I like to use the 2 together, but equally you can use one or the other. So if I bring up the bias that I made earlier for the strip going vertically, I'll show you a little bit of how that's done. So I'll just open that up. So the first thing you would do is just manually pop the long edges to the middle, and because this ends up being ½ an inch, I shouldn't worry too much about your accuracy with that to start off with. And then you just pop it through your bias maker, and like I say, it doesn't matter which one you use, so pop that through so it comes out the other end. And then if you pin this, I have to say this is a really good tip. Pin it so the pins go sideways, so like that, rather than like that. So do them sideways, and that holds it exactly in that position. And then you can take your bias maker along. I mean, this is obviously already pressed, so it's going to be easy to do. You just bring your bias tape along, and at the same time you can pop your iron on. And also with the sasha tool, it's exactly the same principle. So I can take this off, I can thread this through, sort of an up and over. Let's just quickly do that. And like I say, you don't have to use both of them, just use one. I actually personally quite like using both. So with this one, all I'll do is take it back a bit and get my iron in, and you'll see as you go along, it's a bit close now, but the iron actually fits into the shape of the sasha tool, and then you're just pushing it along. It's so easy and quick and accurate. So it's nice to be able to see how that's done. So let's just give that another little press so we put it exactly how it was before. So that's our binding done. All we need to do now is place it onto our pieces of 3 pieces of patchwork. So I've asked you to cut them a little bit wider than the actual width of the patchwork pieces, just so it gives you a little bit of leeway. But what you need to do is to put the centre of the tape over the centre seam. So just try and get that lined up. And because it's a little bit longer, I've got the ability to hold each end and to place that over the top and keep it as straight as you can. If you see that it's slightly wonky, slightly bent, then take it off and do it again. It's not a permanent glue, it's just a temporary fix to help you with your sewing. So again, just hold each end and, oops, hold each end and place down the centre of the seam. There we go. and then give it a little squidge. And you can see, can you see that's just a little bit bent there? So I can just lift that up and reposition it. Lovely, super easy. If you haven't got quilter's tape, use pins, but quilter's tape is really handy. So now we're going to top stitch down both sides of the tape. Let's bring the machine in. Because it's a top stitch, you could put your stitch length up to 3 and just go carefully. It's about a 1/16 of an inch from the fold of the tape. Always go in the same direction if you can. It saves your tape being twisted. Smooth that along. And you'll find, because you ironed your seams flat and open, your tape is actually fixing those down, which is quite nice and neat. Okay, so there is our 2 pieces of binding put on. So we can trim the edges of that now. So where our binding is hanging over the top, we can trim those. So just use your scissors. You don't need to use your rotary cutter and mat for this. So just trim those down so you've got a nice neat edge to now start stitching this last panel of 3 together. So if I bring in the one that I already created, I can just trim those as well now. And we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance to actually join these together. So right sides together, flip this over. Obviously you can pin it, and you're going to stitch all the way down from the top down to the bottom. Pin or clip all the way along to hold that in place. So let's pop it under the machine. And like I say, you're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, we will make the effort of opening those seams up, because we've still got tape to put on the vertical. So we've done the horizontal, we're now doing the vertical. So you've got quite a lot of bulk to consider. There we go. But your machine should easily be able to cope with that. So there's my final piece just placed on. So now we're going to press open those seams. So let's get the iron back in. So just get your finger in between the seam, give it a finger press to start it off, and then just open it up. And even with the tape, you should be able to easily fold those seams open. You can see how that looks on the overhead. There we go. And try not to pucker it. And all the way along like that. There we go. So that's lovely and flat now. Good. So now all we've got to do is exactly what we did before, is to put our quilter's tape down that seam there. If you think that's quite wasteful, then by all means put your tape down and pin it. I'm all for anything that's going to make my sewing journey easy and efficient and actually quite accurate. Don't be afraid about using quilter's tape. It's fit for purpose. It shouldn't mess your needle up. It shouldn't leave any glue. Most of them are wash away, so it's not going to stay permanently in your design. So it's been developed especially for stitching, so go ahead and use. So there we are. So there's my tape glued down. And of course, again, I gave you a little bit of longer measurement, so you can hold it like this if you want to. But as it's a longer piece, I find that the easiest way, just to pop it down. So we're now going to stitch the vertical piece of tape going down the cushion. Stitch length still on 3 because it's a decorative stitch really. Although it's kind of structural, we don't need it to be a small stitch like for quilting. So right down those long edges. Now don't forget, when you come to the horizontal pieces of tape, so those seams that we just put the tape on, your machine may want to push the presser foot, or the presser foot might want to sort of shift over a little bit because you've got a lopsided bit of bulk. You'll understand that once you stitch it. So just as you come up to those seams, just make sure that your machine goes over exactly where you want it to be. You're in charge, not the machine. So all the way down. And just keep it all on track. Lovely. And start from the top again. So it means that your tape is all going in one direction, you know, your stitching and your tape. It's amazing what a difference it makes. If you've got a walking foot, it's not so crucial. So just as you go past those seams, be cautious. And there may be a little place where you kind of go off. You can always unpick that little piece and go over it again. So I'm just being cautious as I go over that seam. Okay. So let's trim that. There we go. And apart from a good press, that's our cushion front done. So what I want to do now is square this up. So I will go away and do that, and then I'll show you that when I come back. Now I'm literally going to be taking a slither. I don't want to make this any smaller. I'm just literally tidying up my seams. So if you see it as it is now, so let's hold it in front of the camera for you. There you go. Let's put it like that. Can you see? Just slightly, just tiny piece there. Particularly we want to make sure that's tidy, so by squaring up I'm not taking off anything that I need to, so it's going to be a real slither along all sides. So I'll come back to you. So I've squared up my piece and I've given it a really good press. Look at the difference a press makes. It looks gorgeous now, doesn't it? I use a little bit of best press to help it with a little bit of steam, and it looks beautiful and it feels lovely because it's a little bit starched. I love that feeling. So now what we're going to do are the mitered, the borders with the mitered corners. Actually super easy to do. So if we go on the overhead again, all I'm going to do for the first one, and I'll do this for all of them, I'm just going to do a little crease here so I get my halfway point, and I'll go on to the other side. You could always use a pin if you think that's not going to be accurate enough for you. And then with this one, it's actually the seam of the binding is our center point here and here. So I'm happy to line up my borders with that. So let's do it this way so you can see. So there is my centre point there. Like I say, you can put a pin in there to help you. I've got my pieces of borders, not binding, borders. If I bring it down, you'll find that it overhangs a little bit each end. So if I bring it up like that, you can see that it overhangs that end, and that's exactly how it should be. Fold that in half. Don't worry about this selvage piece here. Fold it in half. Again, give it a crease. Just crease it like that, and then you're putting right sides together with that crease in the centre. So we can pin that just to keep it in place. And if you want to, and I know some of you will want to do this, just pop a pin in halfway as well from the corner to the centre pin, just so that holds it in place. There we go, you can see it better like that. Now with this mitered corner, what you need to do is to, oh, we don't want a green pen, let's use a red pen. What you need to do is to find a 1/4 inch from each raw edge of here. So you want to find a 1/4 inch in, and 1/4 inch in from there. So it needs to be pretty accurate. Now how I do that is that I fold my border fabric back on itself. I make sure it's square, give it a little crease, open it up, and that gives me the line of the raw edge of my cushion front. And all I need to do now is to bring in a ruler, line that up in the corner there, and put a little dot. I mean, to be honest, you could probably do it by eye, but if you're not sure what 1/4 inch looks like, please use a ruler. And that dot there, and I'm hoping that we can get in a little bit closer, that dot there is where you stop and start stitching. So if we look at the other end, I'll do the same again. So just fold it over so you get a nice crease line, so you know that's the end of the fabric that you're using for the cushion. Again, use a ruler if you want to. I pretty much couldn't eyeball this now, and probably you can as well. I'll just do a nice big red dot there. So that's where we're going to start stitching, and this little dot here is where we're going to finish stitching. So what it means is, and we'll do that for all of them, what it means is that when I stop stitching, I'm going to stop stitching just before the end of my cushion, and it allows me then to put the next border on. So we'll do this, we'll do stitch 1, and then we'll just carry on and do the others just one at a time. I've never found a quick way of doing this. So you're putting your needle into the dot that you've just made. Do a 1 back stitch just to hold that securely, and 1/4 inch seam allowance as normal all the way along. So if I do a couple of these, and then you'll get the idea of how we're doing this. So look, we're just coming up to the last corner now, and I'm looking for my red dot. If you think your fabric is moved, just check again and make sure that dot is 1/4 inch away, and you're going to stop exactly on that dot, as near as you can get, to that dot. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think my fabric moves slightly, and then just do a little back stitch just to make sure it's secure. So if we look at the side camera, you can see what that looks like. Okay, and so when I fold this top bit back, you can see I've got a 1/4 inch just there, and that means that's where I'm going to start stitching for the next border. So let's move this away. I'm going to fold this back, and what I do is, and you'll notice this in the pictures, that the fabric is folded underneath, and that's just to keep it out of the way. So I've just literally folded it back on itself. So the next piece, let's get the next piece ready. So again, we know that the middle on this piece is the tape, the binding. So I'm folding my fabric in half, giving it a crease, and you'll see now we're getting into a little bit of a rhythm of doing the same thing every time, and just making sure that you've got the overhang both ends. So let's just line that up nicely, a pin or clip, and you can see here how the border, I'll get my binding and my borders mixed up today. You're getting your border to go over the top, and you're going to do another little dot just to make sure you're in the right place. And because we've folded this border back, it's right out of our way, so we know we're in the right place. We know we're safe to start stitching. So let's do that dot again. So fold your fabric back, and find this the easiest way. You've probably got ideas of your own of how you can do this, but it gives me a little crease line, a guide of where I'm going to put that dot, and I know it's going to go there. The other thing you can do is just check underneath and make sure that you're pretty lined up with, so where you stopped is where you start, and you can feel that. If you pop your finger on there, you can feel that corner. And again at the other end, let's not forget, we want to know where to stop. So again, we'll just put a dot there, And you obviously you can be guided by your stitching when you get to this end. You don't want to go short of 1/4 of an inch, and you don't really want to go longer. You don't want to leave a longer gap. So start on the dot, 1 back stitch, and then 1/4 inch all the way along. Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt your sewing, but I just needed to tell you about my Gold Club. If you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you will see a page that says Sign Up Gold, and that's where you can first of all try the 14-day free trial period, or you can just sign up straight away and cut to the quick. You get 2 full concise patterns every month with 2 full videos. You also get a mid-month madness pattern that our Catherine makes for us, plus a video to accompany that as well. You also get all the Making It Monday projects for that current month as well for your membership. We have TV celebrity guests every month talking to us about their sewing journeys or just what they get up to in their crafting lives. And it's people that you know that are on your TV screens. We also do personal challenges every month as well. For 2022, we're doing a 12-month journal page, all stitching. And then we're raising money for children in need also with a bear project every month. Not a Pudsey bear, a different sort of bear. So if you join the Gold Club, you really won't regret it. You do need to join the Facebook page to get full advantage of being a Gold member. Listen, I have just finished a Facebook Live with my lovely ladies in the group on Facebook, and we have just made this fabulous scrappy patchy scarf. And those are the sort of things that we do just on an ad hoc basis. It's a great place to be. Come on, sign up and join us. If your fabric does move, I mean, if you use a walking foot, it shouldn't, but if it does, you know, I wouldn't worry too much. I've given you enough at each end to do the mitered corner without the fear of being, you know, 1/8 of an inch short and all that sort of thing. So you mustn't be fearful of that. So again, just coming up, and let's do one more, I think. So always check. So I'm happy that that's 1/4 inch. So if we look at the side camera, if I leave it like that, if I pull back what I've just stitched, you can see I've got 1/4 inch in the corner there. So it's just now a case of repeating all the way around. So I'll finish the other 2 and then I'll come back to you and show you how to do your mitered corners. So I have completed all 4 sides. You can see that all my borders are attached. What we need to do now is to make the mitered corner. Now you'll need a ruler that has a 45-degree line on it and a heat erasable pen and a couple of pins. And you can see on the overhead I've still got it pinned like I said I did on every corner, because that keeps the fabric out of the way while you're stitching. So we'll just take those out. Now what you're going to do is that you are going to fold your cushion front diagonally like that. And you're going to get it so your both borders are touching and your raw edges are sitting on top of each other. I'm just going to flip that for me like that. So the first thing I would do is first of all make sure that everything is flat. I'm not worried about what else is happening. I just want to make sure that my borders are sitting really flat here and that your raw edges are sitting on top of each other, and I will pin it just to make sure that I'm happy with how that's sitting. So again, bring your raw edges down. Be aware of where you're putting your pins. You don't want them to interfere with your ruler. So I might move that one a little bit. There we go. So I want you to see that just here, you'll see where you stopped and started stitching. So if I bring that in a little bit, just there is where you stopped and started. So you've got a seam, and you can actually fold that back, give it a finger press, and you can see the finish line of your stitching just there, literally just there. So with your ruler, I want you to put the 45-degree line along your raw edges, okay, like that. So you're making, what you're looking at is a triangle, and that triangle should follow the line of your cushion here, do you see, and sit very nice and neatly, the 45-degree on the straight edge of your border. And literally at the where you've stopped stitching, you're going to draw a line. I get that lined up like that. So you're literally drawing a line across your fabric from where you stopped and started stitching right down to the corner. And if you've got all your layers sitting right on top of each other, that's going to make you a beautiful mitered corner. So start stitching here. Don't go back. Don't go beyond your stitching. Don't go on this 1/4 inch seam allowance here. You're starting from there with your needle down, and you're going to do a couple of stitches. You're going to go back a couple of stitches, and then you're going to come across here and do a little lock stitch here as well. And you're going to repeat that on all 4 corners. It's actually quite a nice, easy way of doing a mitre. You might think in the past that a mitre is something to avoid at all cost, but actually it's a lovely finish, and it's as easy as that. But the main thing is to pin your layers together. Okay, so if I just do this one, and then I'll go ahead and do the other 3. So again, if we look on the overhead again, now I've stitched it across here, I can trim that away. You can use your rotary cutter if you want to. So about 1/4 inch. Okay. And then I want, once they're all done, I want you to open this up and press your seam flat. So just open up your mitre. You can set the seam if you want to. Open up your mitre. If we can get our thumbnail in there, fingernail. That's it. Just finger press it and then open it up. And you can decide which way your borders go, whether they go out like that or in. I tend to make mine go out, and then this all sits beautifully. So that's how you want all 4 corners done. And do open up that seam so you're distributing the weight, but you also get a nice finish on the corner. So you just need to repeat that on all 4, well, the last 3 anyway. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then you come back to me. So I have completed all of my mitered corners. There we go. You can see what that looks like. Really, really super neat inside as well. You can have a look there, how all the seams are opened up, and it gives you a lovely finish on the corners. So as long as you follow what I've said to you, you'll get the perfect mitered corners. So now what we need to do is to create the envelope back. Really super easy. So in the pattern I tell you the size of pieces you need to cut, and all you need to do with one long edge on each piece is to turn it over 1/4 inch again and top stitch, so you've got a nice neat finish. And then you're going to put right sides down onto your cushion front. So I go top to bottom. You can go across the cushion if you want to, if you've got a directional fabric. And literally I'm just placing this on top. You might find that your pieces are slightly bigger than what you've made. That's fine, no problem at all. So you're putting, if we go on to the overhead, I've sort of come out a bit so you can see. There's my first piece, so right sides together, and then the second piece just lays over the top like that. There we go. And just make sure they're lined up beautifully. And if I bring that forward now, you can see how they fold over each other like that. Really gorgeous. So now all you're going to do is to pin your front to your back pieces. Do make sure that when you pin, and let's just bring this in, when you pin, just make sure that you pin on both pieces of your overlap. So the underneath piece and the top piece need to be sitting on top of each other. If you catch that on the machine, you'll just have to unpick it and stitch it again, because it's easy to catch that as you're stitching. So do pin that to keep them both in the same place. I would always stitch on the cushion side, because that is, you know, that's your where your accuracy is. Sorry, I haven't got my pieces quite level there. So you can see I just need to move those down a little bit, repin that, and then it's a ½ inch. It's a ½ inch seam allowance all the way around. Now that's to allow you to stitch as you normally would, and then you could get your overlock or your serger in there and neaten, or just go straight in with your overlock or serger and go all the way around your cushion. And I'm quite honest, that is my preference, but I will just stitch it on the machine for today. So I'll just get this pinned and then I'll come back to you and we'll stitch round. So I have pinned my outer pieces, my back pieces like that, to my cushion front. So I've overlapped them, as you know, I just told you. So I'm going to now stitch on the cushion front rather than the back, because I know that my cushion front is absolutely, well, I want it to be exactly ½ inch all the way around my cushion front rather than relying on my backing pieces. So like I said before, ½ inch seam allowance on this, guys. And do use your, if you've got an overlock or a serger, do use it. It's just such a great tool to have in your workroom. And one day I will get it down and we'll make something using the overlocker. It's such a great tool. Once you've stitched all the way around, by all means trim this seam back if you want to. I would probably still want to zigzag it if I haven't got an overlocker, just to make sure that it's strong. Make sure that your overlaps are sitting nice and flat as well. I mean, it is going to take a little bit of a beating being on your sofa, the cushion that is. So finishing it off with a zigzag is absolutely perfect. So just keep your fabric lined up. And when you go into the corners, go turn and pivot and turn in the seam that you've made. So just coming back to where we started. And like I said, you'll need a 20-inch cushion pad for this. It's quite a big cushion. I mean, what you could do is not put the border on and make it a smaller cushion. It will turn out to be around about 16 inches, depending on your stitching. So trim, zigzag, you know, make it nice and strong. I'll just trim my corners so when we turn it out it's going to look gorgeous. I've got a cushion pad that we can put in there just to see what it looks like. And that's it made. So although at the beginning maybe you thought, oh gosh, that looks a little bit complicated, all that binding, it actually is quite easy. It's a nice project to do, and of course it could be in any colours. So maybe, you know, even if it's, I don't know, a football fan, maybe they support Norwich. Well, in that case yellow and green is perfect, but maybe they support another football team and you could use their colours and make it for a boy or a girl. And you know, you can because it's nice big cushion, it's not a little dainty thing, it can just be flung about the sofa or the bed and be really cosy. Get a feather cushion to go in. That's pure opulence, I always think, getting a feather cushion. I love a feather cushion. Right, so just pushing out those corners. Now obviously it'll need, again, a really good press. Any little threads, just pull those. And like I said, it needs a press, but that envelope back is sitting beautifully. Gosh, it does need a press. And then the front, let's just give it a little bit of a heat press with my hand, and then the front looks like that. So let's get the cushion pad. I don't think this is not big enough, but it'll give us an idea, won't it? I need to, it's like everybody at the moment, I don't want to order these sort of things online. I like to go to the local store, and we kind of got out of the habit, I think, to be honest. So it's a little bit small for this, but it'll give us an idea. So there we are. Just get my mushrooms going the right way. Like I say, it needs a press, needs a bigger cushion pad. But there we are. There is Janey to match our other Janey, which is there. Same fabric. I really wanted it to be the same. I wanted two on my sofa, lovely spring colours. Because you know what, spring isn't far away. We're currently, this is like our January projects. So hopefully, fingers crossed, spring is around the corner. And I want you to have a look. The bags behind me there, this one here and this one behind me there. Those are our January patterns as well, called Julie. And they're really quite a lovely make. I absolutely love little Julie there. So 2 new patterns for the January. And I hope you make loads.